Brazil. Most people picture Carnival, the Amazon, soccer, and samba, but underneath that vibrant surface lies a history so dark, so deliberately buried, that even many Brazilians have never been taught it. We're talking secret nuclear bombs, the world's most wanted Nazi living in plain sight, a genocide covered up for 50 years, and a government that literally banned books to keep the world from knowing how rich it was. These aren't conspiracy theories, these are documented facts. Welcome to the Studio Chronicles, and let's get into it. Secret number 1. Brazil was kept hidden from the world on purpose. Here's something almost no one talks about. For roughly the first 300 years of Brazil's existence, the Portuguese crown banned books and independent artists from entering the country. No printing presses, no outside observers, no free documentation of any kind. Why? Because the moment Portuguese colonizers realized just how staggeringly wealthy Brazil was, in gold, diamonds, and timber, they made a calculated decision: keep it secret from the rest of the world. The Bragança dynasty, starting with King João IV in the 1640s, became obsessed with this secrecy. It only got worse in the 1700s when massive gold and diamond deposits were discovered in the region of Minas Gerais. Portugal didn't want rival European powers, England, France, the Dutch, to know the true scale of what they were sitting on. So they controlled every image, every map, every written record. The handful of books that did leak information about Brazil's wealth were confiscated and destroyed. Only government-approved artists were allowed to make sketches of the country. A painting of Rio de Janeiro from 1760 is considered one of the most historically important documents of the era. Not because of its artistic merit, but because it existed at all. Think about that. For 3 centuries, an entire country, the size of a continent, was essentially classified information. Secret number 2, the 7,000-page genocide that disappeared for 40 years. In 1967, a Brazilian public prosecutor named Jader de Figueiredo Correia submitted a report to the country's military government. It was 7,000 pages long. It detailed a systematic campaign of mass murder, torture, enslavement, biological warfare, child abduction, and land theft, all carried out against Brazil's indigenous population by the very agency that was supposed to protect them: the Indian Protection Service, or SPI. The Figueiredo Report, as it became known, described officials and landowners deliberately introducing smallpox into isolated indigenous villages. It described sugar mixed with strychnine being given as gifts. It described an attack on a community of 30 Cinta Larga people, dynamite dropped from airplanes, 2 survivors. The report documented a torture device called the trunk, a contraption that slowly crushed the ankles of victims. In Maranhão, entire tribes were completely wiped out. In Mato Grosso, the Waimiri Atroari people numbered around 3,000 in 1972. 11 years later, during the construction of a highway through their lands, their population had been reduced to just 332 people, with no evidence of any epidemic. The report caused an international outcry when it was released. 134 officials were charged with over 1,000 crimes. But here's the gut punch: not a single person was ever jailed. And then the report was believed to have been destroyed in a fire at the Agriculture Ministry, almost certainly a cover-up. It was only in 2013 that a human rights lawyer discovered it, buried in 50 boxes of files at the Indian Museum in Rio de Janeiro. The document had been sitting there, untouched, for 40 years. Brazil's major newspapers barely covered its rediscovery. The Truth Commission later called it one of the most important documents produced by the Brazilian government in the last century. Secret number 3. The Angel of Death died a free man in Brazil. After World War II, one of the most wanted Nazi war criminals in history didn't go to trial at Nuremberg. He didn't go to prison. He went to South America and spent the last years of his life in Brazil completely at large. Joseph Mengele, the Angel of Death, was the chief physician at Auschwitz. He personally selected hundreds of thousands of prisoners for the gas chambers and conducted grotesque experiments on twins, children, and people with disabilities. He was wanted by West Germany, Israel, and Nazi hunters worldwide. After the war, Mengele fled Europe through a network of former SS members and sympathetic Catholic clergy, arriving in Argentina in 1949 under a false identity. When the Mossad captured Adolf Eichmann in Buenos Aires in 1960, Mengele went underground. He crossed into Brazil, assumed yet another false name, Peter Hochbichler, and was sheltered by a network of German-descended farmers near São Paulo. He lived there for nearly 2 decades. Israeli intelligence had at least 2 known opportunities to capture him and chose not to, prioritizing other operations. He was hidden by people who knew exactly who he was. His own family in Germany kept funding him, paying off local police to prevent any evidence from being seized. Joseph Mengele drowned in 1979 during a swim near Bertioga, Brazil. He was buried under a false name. His death wasn't confirmed until 1985 when forensic experts exhumed the body. He was never arrested. He never faced justice. He died free. Secret number 4. Brazil secretly built a nuclear bomb. In the late 1970s, Brazil's military dictatorship launched one of the most audacious covert operations in South American history, a secret program to develop nuclear weapons. The project was codenamed the Solimões Project, named after a river in the Amazon, and later became known as the Parallel Nuclear Program. The program was completely hidden from international inspectors, while Brazil publicly participated in a civilian nuclear cooperation agreement with West Germany. The military was simultaneously running a shadow program with its own secret funding, funneled through accounts codenamed Delta. Each branch of the armed forces had its own approach. The Navy enriched uranium using centrifuges near São Paulo, the Army built toward plutonium production, and the Air Force pursued laser enrichment and reportedly began designing actual nuclear weapon devices. A congressional investigation in 1990 revealed that engineers had designed 2 atomic bomb devices, one with a yield of 20 to 30 kilotons and a second with 12 kilotons. For context, the bomb dropped on Hiroshima was approximately 15 kilotons. They had also excavated a 300-meter deep shaft in the Amazon jungle at an Air Force base in Cachimbo, a secret underground nuclear test site. It gets wilder. The same investigation revealed that Brazil's military regime had secretly exported 8 tons of uranium to Iraq in 1981. The program wasn't publicly acknowledged until 1990, when newly elected President Fernando Collor de Mello, in a dramatic gesture, personally shoveled dirt into the nuclear test shaft at Cachimbo to seal it shut. The weapons program was dismantled, but Brazil still has not fully disclosed every facility, every material, and every activity involved in the program. Some of it remains classified to this day. Secret number 5, the agency created to protect indigenous people was actually killing them. This one ties directly to the Figueiredo report, but deserves its own spotlight because of just how calculated the betrayal was. The Indian Protection Service, the SPI, was founded with a mandate to protect indigenous communities and integrate them peacefully into Brazilian society. What it actually became was a mechanism for extermination and land theft, with the full knowledge of the government. SPI officials didn't just look the other way while landowners invaded indigenous territories. They issued fraudulent documents denying the indigenous presence in areas of economic interest. They leased indigenous lands to ranchers and politicians, and they actively weaponized disease, introducing smallpox and other illnesses into isolated communities that had no immunity. Children were tortured. Women were systematically raped. Communities that resisted were bombed. The prosecutor who wrote the Figueiredo report described the situation in damning terms. The SPI, he wrote, had degenerated to the point of chasing Indians to extinction, and the world noticed but briefly. The report sparked the founding of Survival International in 1969, one of the most important indigenous rights organizations in the world. But in Brazil itself, the perpetrators walked free. The SPI was dissolved and replaced with a new agency, FUNAI. But the same patterns, invasion, dispossession, and violence against indigenous communities have continued in various forms to this day. Brazil is one of the most extraordinary countries on Earth. Its culture, its people, its biodiversity are genuinely remarkable. But the full story of how it came to be, that's a story that's been buried, burned, and locked in archives. The secrets we covered today aren't ancient history. Their consequences are still being felt right now by the people they affected most. If this opened your eyes, share it. Because the first step to reckoning with history is actually knowing it. And thank you so much for watching the Studio Chronicles. Genuinely means a lot that you stuck around for this one. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button. And if you want more videos like this, subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss when we drop something new. I'll see you in the next one.